Today we will be discussing about how we can PT management in osteomyelitis. So as we all know, osteomyelitis is an infection to the bone marrow which can be caused by any pathogens, either by bacteria or by virus. So as we know, so there are some general characteristics for acute and subacute and chronic osteomyelitis. So all those things we have discussed in clinical part. So now we will be discussing how we can manage in physiotherapeutic way. So in the management of osteomyelitis, we have early acute phase and a late stage. So our main aim in early acute stage is to reduce the complications or to avoid the complications and reduce the complaints which is given by the patient. So in acute stage, the patient may be in severe pain, and because of that pain, the patient won't be able to go for much more activities or movement to the particular joint. Because of this loss of movement, there can be future complications. So if there is no proper movement to particular joint, the joint can go for stiffness and the surrounding structures can go for contraction. And if there is no proper blood circulation, there can be some chances for venous complications such as deep vein thrombosis. So in acute phase, we have to prevent all these complications and we have to reduce the acute complaints which is given by the patient. So primarily, the one of the complaint which the patient will be complaining of pain and muscular spasm, because it's an infection to the bone. It can give you a severe amount of pain and the spasm to the surrounding muscular structures. So how we can control the pain? So the best modality which can reduce pain in acute phase is cryotherapy. So application of cryo in the particular in that particular area can reduce the pain as well as it can reduce spasm of muscles. Next is proper relaxed positioning of immobilized limb in elevation. So if the infection has occurred in upper tibia, so the knee joint will be in an immobilized stage. So at that position, we have to take care of the venous circulation in the lower limb. So that's the reason we are taking this limb in an elevated position. So in the elevated position, there is a high chance for venous drainage. So there won't be any venous stasis. So that's how we can prevent future complications such as deep vein thrombosis or the venous stasis. So we have to prevent the venous stasis. So if the patient is advised for immobilization, so immobilization should be done in an elevated position. Next is, if the infection is occurred in children, the mother should be guided for how to change the posture and should be advised to go for repetitive toe movements. So if it is in children, so as we know, children are a kind of a restless persons. So the mother should be taught how to change the posture of the baby, and there should be a repetitive toe movements to avoid complications and to improve venous circulation in the lower limb. And in acute phase, the unaffected joints are encouraged to move as many times as possible, allowing functional activities, maybe with proper assistance if acute symptoms like fever, rigors, chills are absent. So if the knee joint is affected, we can go for a vigorous amount of movements to the ankle joint and the hip joint. So we are not supposed to avoid this ankle and knee joint during the acute stage of this infection. So even if the infection is occurred in knee joint, we have to take care of ankle and hip joint, and we should be encouraging the patient to go for repetitive ankle and hip joint movement. And once the acute symptoms, that means fever and all the fever associated symptoms got reduced, we can actually start with functional activities with the help of assistive device. Either we can use crutches or walker. All those things are all those things should be provided to the patient to achieve his normal functional activities. So the patient should be encouraged to walk on a walker or a crutch with minimal or no impact on the affected limb. So that's all the things which we need to be taking care in the acute phase. Next, strict instructions to the mother on not allowing standing or encourage assisted ambulation even for toilet or stress over affected bone. So if in any case or if in any case or during the functional activities, if the affected bone is going for stress or if the affected bone is going for much more weight bearing functions, it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped because in any chance, if this weight distribution or the weight bearing function has been given to this particular affected bone, it can go for further complications. So if the tibia is affected and if the patient is going for weight bearing in tibia, that can give some other complications such as fracture or some unstable joint. So we don't want any of those complications. So in case of children, we should advise the mother not to encourage ambulation in children. So if the children are start to walk, they are not much more able to control their movement, so they will be walking involuntary. So it can it can give some stress to the affected bone, so that should be avoided. And next is vigorous movement to the joints free from the immobilization. So whichever the joint which are not in immobilized position, we have to be starting with vigorous movements because we have to maintain proper circulation, we have to maintain proper muscle function. So all the joints which are not in immobilization, we should be starting with vigorous activities. Next is isometrics to the muscles under immobilization. So even if the knee joint is under immobilization, we should be giving isometric exercise to the surrounding muscles, mainly to preserve the muscular property. So one of the complication which will arise due to this immobilization is a muscular atrophy. So we don't want to happen that muscular atrophy. So we should be preventing that muscular atrophy by means of isometric exercise. So the patient should be advised to continue a proper regime of isometric exercise to all the muscles which are under immobilized joint. So those are the things which we need to be careful in acute stage. Next is late stage. So once the acute stage is over, next we are going to late stage. So increase the vigorosity of all the procedures. So all the exercise or all the movements which we were conducting in acute stage has to be continued to the late stage with increase in vigorosity. Try to achieve maximal possible range of motion of the stiff and painful joint which were immobilized. So if the knee joint were immobilized, when it comes to the late stage, we should be make sure that the patient should not have any of these acute stage symptoms. The patient should not have any fever, should not have a severe pain, and there should not be any signs of infection. So once the patient is relieved from all the signs of infection, we can go for late stage. So in the late stage, we should be making sure that the bone which were affected are either in the stage of resolution or in the stage of remodeling. So once if the bone is in a resolution, we can start with some amount of joint movements or some amount of immobilized joint movements. So in the stage of resolution or remodeling, we are pretty much sure that the infection got over and we will and the bone is in healing stage. So at that time, we should be encouraging the joint movements which were under immobilization, and we should be trying to get maximum functional movements. So even though we can't try for a complete range of motion in the affected joint, we should be trying for at least a functional range of motion in which the patient will be able to move around in his daily activities. So that should be our aim when we come to the late stage. And when it comes to late stage, we should be initiating standing assisted ambulation with proper orthosis and assistance. So as we know, when it comes to late stage, the bone will be either in a resolution stage or in a remodeling stage. So at that time, we are pretty much sure that the bone is going for a healing stage. So that's the time we can start with standing. So all the standing or all the ambulatory activities should be assisted with any of proper orthosis or any personal assistance. So the patient has to be encouraged to initiate standing and walking either on crutches or a walker or with help of any of personal assistance. So that are the things which we need to continue in late stage. And teach method of transfers. So we should be teaching the patient how to transfer himself from bed to the chair or bed to the wheelchair and wheelchair to walker or to the crutches. There should be a proper teaching how we can transfer or how the patient should transfer from bed to the chair and chair to the standing position and standing position to the walker, crutches, or whatever the things which we are asking for assistance. So the patient should be thought of a proper transfer method which will minimize the effect which, which minimize the effect of that particular movements into the joints. And vigorous functional training with graded support and proper orthosis if needed. So once the symptoms got over and the extra findings of this particular joint or particular bone suggest that the bone is in a healing state or almost in a healed position, then we should be thinking of vigorous functional training. So we should be asking for vigorous functional training, not as in the beginning stage, but we should harden the patient to go for a better functional level. And it should be with a graded support and proper orthosis if needed. So if the patient is having some difficulties either in functional activities or completing his daily activities, we should be advising the patient to have some kind of assistive devices, orthosis, or any of those things. And we should guide the mother on friction massage over the scar to adherent scar whenever needed, and be watchful for symptoms and signs of recurrence. So in case of any open wound or if there was a sinus drainage, so this can result in some kind of scar formation. So this scar can also limit the functional movements, or the scar can also limit the range of motion in particular joints. So if the scar were present over the knee joint, it can limit the knee joint function. So in case scars are present, the mother should be taught to going for friction massages to avoid or to ease the scar. So once the scar is mobilized, and we can achieve a better range of motion. And the mother should be advised to check for any recurrence of symptoms, either fever or rigors or any abnormality in the particular area, or any signs of inflammation or infection should be watched over time. So the mother should be thought about all these things. So that's about osteomyelitis. So whenever we talk about osteomyelitis, it's basically acute and late stage. In acute stage, we are actually preventing all the complications which can arise from this infection or due to immobilization, and we should be preventing all the complications. But when it comes to the late stage, we are not actually preventing, but we are improving the functions of the patient. So we will be starting with vigorous movements and vigorous exercise to the patient, and we should be starting with a vigorous functional training programs to the patient in late stage or in a chronic stage. So next is physiotherapeutic management in skeletal TB. It's a general management for the skeletal TB, and we will be discussing about each joint later. And so in TB joint, as we know, it also an infection to the bones. So it is caused by tuberculosis tuberculosis bacilli, and it can also destroy the bone and the bone properties. And this also divided into early and late stage. In early stage, optimal positioning of the affected limb or part to prevent or minimize the expected contraction and deformities, and to provide rest and relaxation to the affected part of the limb. So as we said in osteomyelitis, in TB also there should be an optimal positioning of the affected limb. So why we need to choose a optimal positioning? It mainly to prevent the contractures and deformities. So if the joint are not positioned in an optimal position, so it can go for some abnormalities or it can give you some deformity. So we need to prevent all those things. So that's why we are going for a proper optimal positioning of the particular limb. Movement in the form of relaxed and active free mode should be begun as soon as the control of disease is confirmed, and we should be gradually increasing the range of motion. So if we are pretty much sure that there is no signs of infection and there is no signs of progression of infection, we should be starting with movements of that particular area. And once all the symptoms got reduced and we are pretty much sure that there is no signs of infection or no signs of any any bone related diseases, we should be starting with a gradual increasing program in range of motion. In patients with extensive damage to the joint, extra care should be taken to prevent bony ankylosis with deformity with finally graded progressive movement. So in patients with any joint surface damage, so one of the problem which can arise with this is that the bone may go for ankylosing. So ankylosing means that the two articulating surface can fuse together in the absence of a proper joint surface. So in case if the TB is affecting your knee joint, if the knee joint surfaces of both tibia and femur were disrupted, it can give you some ankylosing. So these two surfaces can get fused because of this infection. So we should be thinking how to prevent this ankylosing. So we should be initiating our movements to prevent this ankylosing. And graduated weight bearing, especially to the weight bearing joints, should be begun as soon as early as possible. So we should be, once the infection signs got over and we are sure that the bone is going for healing stage, we should be thinking of weight bearing exercises and strengthening exercises to the musculoskeletal complex free from the immobilization with the guidance to perform functional movements of the affected limb. So as we said earlier, all the joints or all the muscles which are not under immobilization has to be encouraged to perform a maximum exercise to avoid the complications. So we should not want any atrophy to the muscles which are surrounding the particular region, and we should be having a proper functional activity with the help of other muscles. So all the muscles and the joints which are not under immobilization has to be given a proper strengthening or a graded strengthening program. And in late stage, depending upon the site of lesion, as soon as the healing of disease is confirmed, vigorous techniques of physiotherapy are initiated to achieve maximal physical independence within the limits of disability. So in late stage, we should be having a proper evidence that the particular joint or the bone has gone for a proper healing stage. So once we are sure that the bone is under healing stage or bone is healed or the pathology of the bone has cured, we should be thinking of a proper physical independence exercises, and we should be making the patient much more physically independent, and we should be limiting all the disabilities which can arise due to this particular infection. Effort should be done to get to or close to the functional range of movement. So we should be starting with all the exercise which will improve this functional range of motion to the joint. So we can start with the mobilization or all the joint movements or all the joint exercises has to be start to achieve a maximum or a normal functional range of motion. Proper guidance should be given on the maintenance or training to use aids and support. So if we came to the conclusion that the patient should be needing some kind of orthosis or assistive devices, there should be a proper prescription and there should be a proper guidance which should be given to the patient how to use and how should not use these assistive devices. So if we are prescribing walker, we should be prescribing how much should be its height and how we should use this walker. And if we are asking for crutch, we should be prescribing a proper crutch measurement with a proper guidance for how to use these crutches. And manual assistance and use of parallel bars should be done to initiate ambulation. So when we ask the patient to start with ambulation, we are not supposed to ask the patient to walk alone or walk without support. So initiation of ambulation should be either by manual assistance by the therapist or with the use of parallel bar. So this is how we should initiate the walking. So that's how you can manage in general about skeletal TB.